Like yesterday, we were going through the bronze and the silver layer of the medallion architecture. So first thing is, as usual, we had created workspace called architecture, and under that architecture, we had created a lake house called sales. So under that sales lake house, we had created a file folder for bronze. Basically, we created a bronze layer in this lake house to store the raw data, and the data was pulled from the external source GitHub and loaded into this bronze folder. So once the raw data was loaded here, we started preparing this data in order to transfer it to the silver stage. So let me just open the notebook. So here goes the code. So first thing is created a schema for the existing data with the name order schema, and we created a data frame to store this all the three files, that is the sales data files, into a single data frame. Then we applied a very minimal transformation. First we added three columns. So we added columns like he's flagged and created timestamp and modified timestamp. There was a column with the input file name. Then we added he's flagged column in order to capture all the data that is less than it is a boolean. Basically flagged columns are all boolean columns which will either store true or false. So if there is a data beyond less than this date, earlier than this date, it will show as true, or else it will be false. And created timestamp creates the current, takes the current timestamp, that is the date and time of the current time. And similarly, the modified timestamp is when this row was been modified. So it takes the timestamp of that time and date. Now next, moving further, we also did correction on the customer name column where added a condition wherever the customer name is empty or a null. So we filled the rows with unknown using this code. We updated the customer name to unknown if the customer name is null or empty. After that, we created a schema called sales, and using the API procedure, we created a delta table. So this is how we have created a delta table using delta API. And once the table was created, we had to push the data from the data frame to this delta table. So we started moving the data from the data frame to the silver delta table. That is what this code does. So after that, once it was pushed to the silver layer, we just explored the table, that is silver sales table, using the lakehouse SQL endpoint. So here, if you come back to the architecture, you'll be able to see this sales house, but we shifted it to the SQL endpoint, and we went through these queries. Through these queries, basically, one query was to check whether what was the total sales per year, and the second query was to fetch the top 10 customers who had purchased the maximum quantity of. So this was all about the silver layer, and we understood how the data was transformed a bronze layer to the silver layer, and how the data has been organized here, and we also explored the data in the silver layer. So until here, I guess there are no queries or doubts.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we will be seeing how do we load the silver layer data into the gold layer by doing some transformations. Again, refining the data in a very crystallized form. So first thing is, whenever we tell the data is going to the gold layer, so that data will be in the form of dimension of fact tables. So that is the you can think this as pushing the data into a data warehouse after doing the transformation. So whenever you're moving the data to the gold layer, it should be in the form of the dimension and fact table. Whenever the data is loaded into the dimension and fact, it means data which contains in the gold layer is cleaned and it is good to use for reporting and analysis. So now we'll be doing some more analysis before we push into the gold layer. So let us go step by step. So first thing is to push into the gold layer. First thing is we need to create a new notebook. So first thing what I'll go do is I'll come to my workspace and I'll click on the new item and I'll search for notebook. So I will give the name as the notebook as transform data for gold. So here a new notebook has been created within our workspace. So first thing, whenever we create a notebook is to add our sources, data sources to our notebook. So I'll be adding the our sales lakehouse to this notebook. So I'll just click on this add items. And as we already have a lakehouse created or existing data source, that is the sales lakehouse. So I'll click on existing data sources and I'll select this sales lakehouse and I'll click on connect. So the data source is connected to the notebook so that we can explore the tables, whichever it has been, we have already created. This is the silver layer sales table. And now using this itself, we are going to transform it to the gold layer and we will be exploding this table into dimension and fact tables. So now, first thing is we'll connect to the session. It'll take just 2 seconds. It's created. Now I'll add a data frame, the sales table that is in the silver layer, that is sales silver table. Once after that, so next is I'll be creating schema. So as I told, whenever we are transforming the data from silver layer to the gold layer, it is like you're pushing the data into the data warehouse, which contains a dimension and fact tables. So in order to create a dimension and fact tables, you need to explode this table. So we have it in a single table. We'll explode this into dimension date and dimension customer, dimension product, like this, and fact sales. So can anyone tell me what is the difference between dimension and fact?
Fact table is holding the numerical data, and dimensional table is holding the descriptional data of the fact table.
Yeah, you're right. So that is what we are going to do for this gold layer. Basically, we are taking the data from the sales silver table and we'll segregate the data where all the numerical data will be named as fact silver and all the descriptional data will be stored in the dimensional format. So in order to create that, first we need to create a schema for each of them and then fetch the data from the silver sales silver table and upload the data into this new delta table which we will be creating after the schema has been created. Let's focus on creating on the schema. So as usual, I'll be importing all the SQL types from PySpark and I'll be importing all the tables, I mean table formats, creation of tables and table formats from the delta.tables. So now I'm defining the schema for date gold in the sense it stores only the date values in this table and it is in the gold layer, so it is given as dim date gold. So here delta table, this is a syntax creating for defining a schema for delta table. Basically, we are creating a delta table for storing the date values using the delta table API process. So first thing is we'll create a delta table in Spark with the name called sales dot dim date gold and we'll add the order date, day, month, year, and we'll also add the month and year column and year and month column. So once we run this, the schema and the table will be created. After this, create a data frame for the dim date gold layer so that it will be easy for us to load the data into this delta table. So once the schema is created, next step is to create a data frame. So from PySpark, I'll be importing all the functions like the column, day of the month, year, date format, everything. So once I am creating a data frame, first thing is I'll be dropping the duplicates from the order date column, and then I will be taking date a day of the month. The column name will be as day from the order date and month. This will capture the month from the order date and it will be giving in the column called month, and year from the order date, and it will be named as the column will be named as year. Similarly, the from the order date, we will take the date format as month and year and month, and same thing will be aliased as the column name. And whole thing will be ordered by. So let's run this and see the output. So why this is done in the form of month and year? Because this is for the reporting convenience. This column has been added and formatted in this way. So as you can see, the data frame has been created. So the next thing, we have the data frame. We have already created delta table using delta API. Now we need to update this, move this data from this data frame to this delta table. So we need to give a path to it now. So first thing is this path, you need to refresh your items, all the sources. So once you refresh your source, and under table sales, if you refresh sales, you will be able to see the table that has been created. Well, we have created the schema. So the delta table has been created over here as dim date, which has all the columns which it has mentioned. Now take the path of this, copy the path of this dim date gold, and you need to paste it in this syntax. So this will basically direct the data to store in this path. So delta table that for this path, we need to update the data frame called df dim date gold. So df dim date gold is a data frame we have created, which where this data has been stored. Now we'll push this data to the delta table. So delta table, which has a aliasing has gold, it will merge it. So this will merge with the df. So the whole the data frame which is in dim date gold is assigned to dim df updates. From there, it will be taken to the gold order. It will check whether the gold order date is equal to the updates dot order date, and the match is set. It is good when the values it is not matched, and it matches the order date with the updates each and every row, and updates the table over here. So let's execute this, and so it basically merges the unique dates into the dim date delta table. So that is what it is. The whole operation is about. When there are no updates, so it will be an empty. There will be no operation. If there are updates, it this operations will happen. So it updates these things. So if there is any update to the table, this has to run. If there are no updates, none of the operations has to be performed. That is what this cell does. So similarly, we have to create a customer dimension table. Now we have already created a dimension table for date. Now next is we will be creating dimension table for customer. So first thing is same thing again. The dimension table is created using the delta table APIs. And once it is created, you can refresh this tables. You will be able to see the dim customer gold as a table name. So you can see here there is a dim customer gold table created using this delta API. Now next is we need to create a data frame in order to fetch the data, and then push it to this delta table, that is a dim customer gold. So as we know, in the silver layer, we have the customer name split into the first name and the last name. So wherever the customer is null, to specify it as unknown. Now here on the same column, customer name column, we will be splitting the customer name into first name and the last name. So it is all the duplicates from the customer name, and then we'll select the column customer name. Based on the customer name and email, we will select the first name from the customer name and has the first column, and the second column will be the customer last name of the customer name, and that will be the second column. So 0 represents the indexing of this both the columns. 0 will be the first column and second column will be the last name. So we'll just run the cell and we will see how. So the based on the customer name, you can see that the first name goes over here and second goes over here. So it has been split. It is a split operation on the customer name column. This is a kind of transformation we undergo before we push it into the dimension tables in the gold layer. So the next step will be to create a data frame. See this if there are any updates on this data frame. So for that, there is a set of code. So from PySpark, we will be importing the monolithic increase ID column and when clause and coalesce max and literal. So we will be creating a temporary data frame that is read from dim customer gold, and then we will determine the maximum customer IDs from the dim customer gold, and then using that, then we'll be coalescing the maximum customer ID with the literal. It returns 0 if the table is empty, or if there is some value, it will update to this table. Suppose if this notebook is running in a pipeline, if there is an update in the customer table, if there is a update in the customer name, then it takes case over here itself before pushing it to the gold layer. So today at 2 o'clock, the whole silver layer notebook and the gold layer notebook has run. So whenever there is an update in the source, it undergoes all the two layers. When it comes to the gold layer, checks whether this table has been updated. So if it is updated, it will update it even to the dim customer gold, or else it will be an empty operation. It doesn't update anything. It just passes to the next stage. That is what it does. So where you can see that in the customer gold, it has been mentioned to join from the silver. If the customer name is in the temporary table create, then it will not update this customer table because the name is already there in the dim customer gold. So which means that whichever the customers are there already, the second time the customer purchases some items, the name won't be updated. Only the new name will be updated. That is how the incremental load is taken care. So the here it is a left anti-join. It only returns the rows of the dim customer in the silver that do not have matches in the dim customer temp. In the sense, only the new customers' names will be updated to this table before going to the gold. So this is how the customer table is taken care while it is moving from silver layer to the gold layer. Okay, now how will the customer table get updated? So it updates basically on the customer ID. So using the customer ID, the monolithic increasing ID function runs and write a surrogate key to the table, a fresh table that is being created in the gold layer. So all the incremental load or any duplicates will be handled this stage itself when it is moving from silver to gold. So whatever the data is flowing in the is already there in the silver layer, it should be verified, filtered before pushing it to the gold layer. Going to take care over in this set of code. So this is where the new surrogate key for each of the new customer also generates with this row itself. So next, once the data frame is done, now the data is also pushed to the customer gold. And if we run this, now you will see the data in the dim customer gold. So this is how you can see the data stored in the dim customer gold. Now next will be, so this was stored in the data frame. As you can see, it was a DF. Now we need to push this data into the delta table. So that is the next set of operation. So as usual, now we had pushed the dim data to the gold delta table, right? Similarly, we'll be pushing this customer data into the dim customer gold table, because all the data is filtered in within the data frames, and the final data frame is ready with the DF dim customer gold that should be pushed into the delta table. So for that, we need to give the path of this table over here. So once the path is given, it again runs with the df updates. So if there are already in the dimension table, if there is an incremental load, then it updates all the things, or else there is no operation to be performed over here. So everything is based on the customer name and the email is taken into consideration while updating this table in the pipeline. So let us execute this. So it basically merges the only newly created customers into the dim customer gold table. That is the main agenda of this set of code. So now customer table is done and date table is next will be the product table. We'll be creating a dim product gold. Again, the same process where we will create delta table with the name dim product gold. So it contains the item name, item ID, and item info. So item table, these are the three columns that we are going to specify to it. And here the surrogate key is generated using the item ID. So once it is now the table should have created over here. Let us refresh it. Okay, you can see the dim product gold. So now the next set of operation will be verify the data from with the help of a silver layer table. So we have the data frame created for dim product silver, and we'll also drop the duplicate items and from the column item. We will also deduplicate the products by item text, and then we'll split the item to extract the item's first part, and the item info has the second part. So if the item has only name example, if you take mountain div, so mountain and div, if you examine the mountain and the div are the two different words of a single item, the mountain will be taken as the first item name and the last item name will be taken as div if there is no such word. If suppose if you take example of a lantern as an example, lantern is a single word, so that time the only the first column will be filled, the last column will be an empty string. So that is how it is going to update. So we'll just run this cell and see how it looks. It is segregated by comma, so splitting the item by the basis of this comma. So whatever comes after the comma will be taken as item info. That is what it is doing over there. So now we have created a data frame in the silver layer for transform the data. Now we will take the same approach as we did for the customers. So we will compare with the temporary table over here too. So first thing is we will read the original table. Suppose you think the data is already loaded to the DIMS product and this is the second or the third load that is going to happen. First it will read what and all things are there in the product gold, and it will store it in this df temp, and it reads the existing product and it finds the maximum product with the max product ID. Then it uses the anti to keep only the, here there is a join with the whatever the df we have created, transformed and created in the df product silver. So whenever we are joining, it only inserts the new items. If there is an existing item, it doesn't allow to enter into this df dim gold. So it doesn't pass through this filter. Basically, whenever we join the silver with this in order to get into the gold layer, it doesn't get any repeated columns that is already there in the temp. And then generate a new surrogate key for the new items. This monolithic increasing ID is put over here, which always generates the new surrogate key with the help of item ID. Let's run, see how it looks. So now you can see that this is the item and the item name where the item info is here and the item ID is over here. Now it's time to push it to the delta table. So here I'll be giving the path of this customer dim product gold and I'll paste it over here. So basically I'm uploading this filtered data frame of dim product gold to the dim delta table, dim product gold table. It has been succeeded. So it is basically again the same. The what are the operations we have seen in the customer and the date table. The same thing is going to happen. If there are any updates, it is going to run this set of operations. If there are no updates, there is an empty string. No operations are performed, and it is always checked with the df.updates, uh, which is loaded with the original df product gold table. So moving further, this is the last table. So we have loaded all the delta tables that is of dim. Now we'll be creating the fact tables and loading the data to it from sales silver. So first thing is we need to create the fact table. So this is how we create the fact table, and using the delta table API itself, and we'll name them as sales.fact database name, and sales fact gold is the table name. So it stores the customer ID, item ID, order date, quantity, and unit price and tax. So all of them are only kind of numerical values. So once the fact table skeleton is ready, that is basically the schema and the data tables are ready, you can refresh this sales schema. You will be able to see the fact sales gold delta table created over here. Basically, here we are creating a star schema. We will have one fact table and multiple dimension tables. So, in order to connect our dimension date table, right? So, we will choose one of the identity to link to the fact table. So in that case, order date is a numerical value which contains only numbers. So only the date
Okay.
will be taken into consideration, date type. So here you can see the data types, right? It only selects those date type. So once the table is created, you will be able to see how it is connected to the other tables. Now next set of operation will be we need to load this data into this table, right? Before that, we need to create a data frame in order to verify whether the data is already been present in the I mean fact table or not. So that is why this data frames are created. So first thing is will bring the temporary customer data frame and the temporary product data frame, and we'll read it with the of this tables. So all the original data will be stored in this DF, which is read from the original tables, that is dim. These are the delta tables which are going to be stored as data frames. Now in this data frame, it repeats the here the product he split on the main DF to expose the item name and info to join the products. In order to join this, so we will be exploding the item column, and we will be like exploding the item column into the item name and info columns to join it to the product dimension. Once that is done, then we will be joining this is the main sales data frame, final sales gold, and once it has been created, we will be first joining on the customer name and email ID. So that is what is given here, customer name from temp and the email ID to get the customer ID, where this is a left join which has been created. So it only here only the rows without the customer still remain with the null customer IDs. Then the second join, whatever we are applying it over here, is item info to get the item ID. That is how it is taken into consideration. So how do we identify whether the join is right? So it is mentioned over here. So this is a left join, and even here it is mentioned for the customer name and email. So this is also a left join. This is how the join is performed, and we will select the rest of the columns that is required for the fact table, and then order by the order date, and customer ID and the item ID. So once we run the cell, we will be able to see the whole data frame of the sales fact sales gold table before loading it to the delta fact sales gold. So here is the table. So you can see the customer ID, item ID, order date from order table, quantity and unit price are from the product table, I believe, and then the tax is also drawn from there. So this is how the table has been created. Now the data frame is ready. Now let us push it into the delta table of fact sales gold. So here we need to give location of fact sales gold. Once it is given, it again follows the same procedure. All the original sales fact gold is pushed to the DF updates. Once on comparison to that, if there are any updates, this set of operation will run. If there are no updates, it doesn't run anything. It'll just keep it aside. So once we run this, it has been executed. So it basically merges the fact rows to the fact sales gold. Here it is merged on the based on the order date, customer ID and the item ID. So now you could see the whole medallion architecture. First, the data was in the bronze layer in the raw files. Then it was brought to the silver layer with a minimal transformation and basic transformations. Later on, before we push to the gold table, when we are transferring the data to the gold, we have fine-tuned the data and exploded the data into fact and dimension tables. So it is easy for the reporting and the analysis to fetch the data from this dimension and fact and present the analysis to the stakeholders. So this was all about the medallion architecture.
That's all for now. Like and subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. Thank you.